Well, thank you guys for coming today. We're really excited. This is part 2 of a conversation that we started about a month ago on technology. And again, if you weren't with us last time, just to give you a quick part of why we're doing this is just as family ministries, we've been looking at, and my name's John, I'm the pastor of family ministries. If I haven't met you, I'd love to meet you. But when we think about family ministries, that's birth through young adults. One of the big areas that we're seeing a need for more resources and understanding is the ever-changing world of technology, right? Last time we talked about how often we are on our devices. We might hit a little bit of that today, right? Today, I sent an email last week talking about how the average U.S. teen spends between 6 and 7 hours. Nathan might even have more up-to-date stats on that, on some sort of screen every day. And that's not including schoolwork. And so when we think about technology and the amount of input that it's having on our lives, and especially on the lives of the next generation, how should we be thinking about that? What are the good things that come from technology, and maybe what are some of the negative things? How do we balance those and think through that? That's a lot of what the conversation is today. And so we reached out to Nathan from Gospel Tech. He'll tell you more about himself and the organization in a minute. Because they've been putting together great tools and resources to help us think about technology and the gospel with intention. And that's really what we think the call for parents is to be intentional with our children in every area. And so when we think about technology, how do we do that well? And so that's going to be a large part of the conversation. I'm excited because I know so many people have asked me, what is Drool Tech? And you are actually going to get to find out the answer to that today. So thankfully, Nathan's got that nailed down for us. And so, Nathan, I'm going to turn it over to you. Okay. And then we're going to do a Q&A at the end today. So if you have questions, kind of save those, write them down. And then at the end of our time, we're going to have time for an open Q&A time, all right? All right. Nathan,
awesome.
It's all you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone, for having me back. Really excited to be back here at Cascade Church, continuing this conversation. I can't believe it's already been a month. Is that just me?
Yeah.
Does that feel like it was like a solid week and a half? But it's been a month apparently. COVID time is still real. You should have this document. It will help you, if for no other reason than recalling it later. I will ask you to review this because when we review it within 24 hours, we remember the information longer. And it will help you make sense of some of the things. I'm sure I will go very fast at some point, and it will help. So please make sure you got it. Our conversation today is about tech in our families, tool tech, Drool Tech, and building trust. Yes, he threw Drool Tech right out there for you, so we will get to that. As you see, kind of our 3 main headers, it's the 2 types of tech, how we can assess tech health, and then how can we build tech trust. This is intended to be the more practical of the 2 conversations. Last time we talked big picture technology about social media and smartphones, video games, and pornography, and just kind of how do we parent in a world where these things exist, and how do we do that in light of the gospel. We are building on that conversation, so it's not needed. If you didn't show up last time, that's fine. You're going to be right in pace with us, but I would encourage you to check out the video that John has, and I believe has posted. The idea being, that's a really helpful conversation too. This conversation will actually add to that. So you can go after today and re-listen to it, and you'll have some aha moments, because this is embedded at the base. I didn't start with it because, well, I wanted to go second. So this conversation is rooted in the fact that I'm a dad of 3 kiddos. This is my fam, Owen, Henry, and Hadley. Henry, by the way, has the right side of his face right now is like 3 times too big because he had a situation with a scooter and some asphalt yesterday. Tough as nails. It was the one where the tooth doesn't go all the way through the lip, but you can see the poke mark, right? Like the bruises coming through. And throughout the day, I was like, your face looks like it's sloughing. It's just kind of sagging. But this presentation is developed with the idea that I want my kiddos to grow up in a world where we understand how we can love God and use tech. How do we do them both? How do we not love tech and use God, but how do we instead, from a place of hope in light of the gospel, the good news that God saves sinners, how do we take the humility that requires to recognize that I'm a sinner in need of grace, extend that into kindness to others and say, all right, I understand that other people need kindness because they're also sinners in need of a Savior. If we just full stopped there, by the way, and took one social media platform and just remember humbly that we need a Savior and so do other people, That'd be pretty amazing. And then the end part, that we're not saved from the world, we're actually saved for it. Ephesians 2:10 says that we are saved for good works that God has prepared beforehand for us to do. That was the purposes of our salvation, not because God needs us, but because he loves us. Now take that and apply that to tech. What if we used our tech in light of that? That's what we're talking about today, and that's the reason this conversation happened. So I was a middle school teacher for a decade. I love middle school teaching. I actually had the opportunity since our last talk to go back and do a trio of assemblies at my home, like my base school, which was so cool. None of the kids knew me because it's been COVID. So I quit right before COVID to start this job. Or this ministry. It's not really a job, it's a lifestyle. But being able to go back and see, like, all right, like, this is what we're doing. We're having this conversation about how do we use tech well, how do we love others. So middle school teaching got me that passion. I got out of it for the same reason I got into it. I want to see kids reach their full potential. And I'm talking to you all because I really want to empower you to do three things. I want you as parents, that's who this conversation is directed towards, to be able to understand and talk about healthy tech. I want you to be able to communicate the gospel clearly. And I want you to be able to connect that truth of the gospel, that hope we have in Christ, to your daily tech lives, to operate out of that. So if you have boundaries, if you have rules, if you say yes to tech or no to certain tech, you're going to do it because of the gospel, because of hope, not because of fear. So this is my motivation, and you do need to know that. Today we're going to talk about two types of tech, assessing tech health, and how to both build tech trust and operate in that. It says tech trust, not tech fortress. We'll cover that. It's not how to win a tech fight. We will get there, but we need to start with this idea, as apparently many of you were like, I don't know that word. There are two kinds of tech that you saw on the slide for this talk. We have tool tech, and we have drool tech. Those aren't terms you'll see anywhere else. I made them up because in reading the research very early on, I was trying to figure out how to have this conversation with people, and the tendency is either we say tech is perfectly fine, everything is great about it, you just need to quit being such a Luddite and an old person stuck right in their stone age on your lawn with a rake saying, darn kids these days, right? That's one side. And the other side, right, is no, like tech is absolutely the devil. Remember when rock and roll was a big thing in the 90s? And anyone watch Hell's Bells? Anyone else raised on that documentary? And it was like, if you listen to Madonna songs backwards, they're all messages from Satan. And that's not a joke, actually. It's in the documentary. You can find it. I watch it, and it's seared into my memory. I can't unsee it. Tool tech and drool tech is my attempt to somehow drive that line between, all right, there's absolutely tech that is designed purely for helping us create, and there's tech that's designed, instead of helping us create, to help us consume. So first, let's talk create. This is what it sounds like. It's going to operate at the pace of real life. Tool tech can't go faster than you because you are the one using it. If you stop working, it stops working. It's tool tech. It doesn't have any engagement stratagem other than it's really good at what it does. Why do we use shovels? They're good. If I need to dig something, I'm going to use a shovel, not a spoon, because a shovel's better at this job. That's why you use tool tech. It helps. It does whatever you need it to do. Compare that to drool tech. Drool tech helps us consume. It's not bad, but it does have another goal beyond the goal we showed up for, and that's really, really important to remember. That drool tech is programmed with the second goal in mind. So when I show up because I'm bored or because I want to have fun or because I want to connect to friends, drool tech will help me do that, but it also has another goal, and we're going to talk about that here in just a moment. But before we go too far, I want to do a little pop quiz because middle school teacher. What's a conversation without a pop quiz? So would you tell me, is a nail gun tool or drool tech? Tool. And I wanted it to be really easy. I know that feels like a trap. Sometimes like everyone will be quiet. They're like, I don't know, does it have Bluetooth? Like, I don't know. But it is tool tech, and the entire idea being it builds. It's just a really fancy hammer, which is just really fancy rock tied to a stick, which is just a really, right? Like, it's just a way to apply pressure to an object to drive it through another object. That's a nail gun. If you're not holding the nail gun, it quits working. That's a really good sign that it's tool tech. How about a radio? You guys are much more confident. I was going to put podcasts. It's just way too close to home because I run a podcast, and it just felt too soon. But radios, for most of us, are going to be tool tech on the consumption side. If you run a radio show, that'd actually be tool tech. You are getting a message out to masses of people, and you are creating with that from your own passion, from your own interest, from your own skill set. And you are making at the pace of your life. And if you quit recording, the radio show quits, right? But for most of us, we consume on the radio. And frankly, most of us use it even when it's informational, let's say that. Like, well, this is informational, this is how my question is always, well, what do you do with that information? Because if you go to the water cooler and you're like, did you guys hear about those Taylor Swift tickets? Then it's going to be, none of you guys heard about the Taylor Swift tickets. That's good to know. Now I know my audience a little bit better. Then it doesn't inform your life, though. If it doesn't change what you do, then it's just fun facts. Okay? That's called infotainment at that point. So when we're watching the news or we're doing any of these other things, if it's not changing what we do and how we do it, if it's not informing practice, then it's not a tool. It is, in fact, dual tech. So for those of you who are like, yeah, but I use radio to, all right, that's great. If it's informing practice and changing and enforcing the way you live your life, then it is, in fact, tool tech for you. Word processor. So Pages, Microsoft Word, something like that. Google Docs. Yeah, in this case, it is a tool because it is you creating. Word processor, you type it in, it's the same thing as you handwriting, except you can send it faster than over mail or carrying it to someone's house, right? It invites editing, it invites collaboration, but there is no additional engagement, which we'll talk about it in a minute. How about news feed? This could be your Apple feed, your TikTok feed, your CNN Basis Street. I know this is a CNN crowd for sure, since you knew so much about Taylor Swift. I know that. What do you think? Which is interesting, right? Because I really like to believe that my apps make me very informed and a good, solid citizen. But just today, as you scroll through your news, look at how much of it you actually click on and read. The average reading is something like 8 seconds once someone actually does click. It's under 30. For reading an article you do click on, but most of us just read the headline. And then we go to our friends and go, did you guys hear about, right? And we use it just to kind of feel like we're in the know, and it's more just glamorized international gossip. And half of it apparently is about Elon Musk, which I don't know. I was like, because this guy, what is happening? Like, why are we having so much? So the news feed for most of us, the reason it's not informed tool tech is we're not the ones doing the research. It's an algorithm. And that algorithm is trying to send you one of two things. This isn't, by the way, algorithm is not making any decisions. It's programmed for a goal, which is engagement. And that goal is to either get you really happy or really mad. Those are the two things that are going to make you share and read and comment. And that's what drives the internet right now, is engagement from users. So the more mad you get, that's awesome. That's not a bad thing. That's how TikTok operates, right? TikTok will send you either stuff you're going to absolutely crave and love or stuff that is going to send you off the deep end. And that's how they drive users and views and engagement time and keep you a little bit longer than you intended, was because you get all fired up. So your news feed is probably dual tech unless you're using multiple sources and you're going and searching that topic and you're researching it, and then that's informing your practice and how you go about it. But if really you just have 3 apps that all basically say the same thing and it's just to make us feel good about what we already believe before we show up, it's probably dual tech at that point. How about our computers? Yes. Excellent. We are quick learners here. I'm sorry, I just saw you were in a boot. I'm sorry to see that. I'm going to need this story later. I want to hear that. That's progress in a month. All right. So your computer can be either. When I was teaching 8th grade, our district went 1-to-1. So we got all of our kids with laptops, which is a really cool idea because I was able to push all my stuff digitally. And now there's no excuse like I couldn't make it to school. I'm like, ha, it's on the shared drive. Find the file. Do your homework. So that was really cool stuff, except they also came with Minecraft, which was an interesting conversation with why, but it was because it was educational, was the example. It might have also had something to do with Microsoft paying billions of dollars for the game, but it came with it, and you can imagine the struggle as a teacher is like, all right, kids, it's January, it's raining outside, we're going to read To Build a Fire by Jack London, which if you're unfamiliar, is about a dude in the Yukon freezing to death. Real thriller. And it was part of this wonderfully depressing unit that I did, because I'm like, if I'm a Washington teacher, we're going to leverage this for literary value. Okay? January, you are bummed. Awesome. Read about this dude, right? But right next to the shared drive folder was Minecraft. And not only that, the laptop would send them notifications. Did you know this computer has Minecraft? Like, what? Yes, they know. They're 8th graders. They figured it out. Like, they got it. And it was a really, really difficult struggle. I have a picture. I went and looked for it. I couldn't find it. But there is a picture that exists of 32 students in class, and like 20 some out of the screens are showing Minecraft. All right, just back of the room picture of all the kids facing forward. They could not mitigate their behavior. Computers can be either. It's a portal to whatever you're looking for. It can be distraction. Certainly it could be entertainment and amusement. It could be learning. Sometimes those two overlap. But we need to understand that tool tech and drill tech have different ways. So here's what I meant by this. Tool tech is designed to create. So if we use something like Microsoft Word or something like AutoCAD, these are both creation-focused tools. So you help write. At no point will either of these send you a notification. You don't get a notification from Microsoft Word when you're laying in bed going, hey, just noticed you haven't written anything for a while. Thought maybe you'd like to. No, it's laughable, but it doesn't do that. At no point does Microsoft Word go, did you know that Johnny down the street started his book already? Do you know it's way better than yours? Here's just a few things people are saying about it. It's way better than yours. You should feel terrible. It doesn't do that. It simply does what you ask it to. When you click save, it saves. When you click share, it shares, and then it goes away, and it waits for you. That's tool tech. Drill tech, however, is not quite so patient. So social media, shows and movies, music, and video games, I put our news feeds in there as well. The idea here is it's got the goal of consumption. So I might show up to find out what's happening in my world, but it wants to take my time, my focus, and my money. I might show up to enjoy a show with my wife, but again, me going and watching one show is never it. That's why autoplay defaults on. That's why there's an algorithmic feed that when I go and watch the exact same show every single time, British Baking Show right now, and I want to go watch it, it doesn't just load up Netflix and give me my show. It's buried like 3 lines down, and it's never the first one. Like, I have watched nothing since this show 3 days ago. Where did all this come from? Drill tech. It doesn't want me to just get to the show. This is what YouTube is so super duper duper good at. Is you go looking, I go looking. Someone's like, oh, do you have like a quick intro to gospel tech? I'm like, in fact, I do. I go to my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel! Can't even get there without going through a feed. And I tell you, the number of times I wake up 8 minutes later being like, I don't remember why I was here. That was a really cool video on Airsoft, but I have no idea what I was doing. And music and video games, the entire idea, yes, is to enjoy and to expand and to experience. But there is this aspect where they're designed for retention. They're designed to make a profit off your time and your focus and your personal income. And that is a goal beyond what tool tech does. So that's really foundational to this conversation, to a talking conversation with your children, with your loved ones, about tool and drill tech. When you have concerns about technology and what is happening, today we're giving you those words. The first thing you need to do is identify, is it tool tech or is it drill tech? Is this technology that we're simply using and it's extending and leveraging our God-given gifts and passions? Or is this something that we're driven to because of our God-given gifts and passions and it's manipulating us in some little way? It's not diabolical, but we do need to know that tool tech wants to keep your time, your focus, and your money. Time meaning they want to keep you a little longer than you meant to show up for. You wanted to stay for a minute to watch that how to fix your air conditioner video. And thought that was me for a second. I was like, I don't have that notification. I don't know what it means. They want to keep your time a little bit longer. And the reason that's really important is I actually did the math on this. YouTube has more than 1 billion individual users in a month. If they were to keep those individual users for just an extra 30 seconds, just keep you 30 seconds longer once a month, it came to something like 10,000 extra hours of viewing, which is amazing for what 30 seconds would mean to a company like YouTube. They want your time, but if they can't take your time, you saved your minute and you walked away, they want to give you something that's going to make you come back for that 1 extra minute. So sure, you got your minute and you left, but now you have that question, and that next time you have a question, it's when you're sitting in a restaurant and you have that irresistible urge to find out how old is Tom Hanks. And it doesn't matter, it's not going to change anything, and someone inevitably busts out their phone and has to check. That's what they want. They want to just be that little itty bitty snippet, 30 seconds out of this conversation, where we give them just that little bit of extra time. Because again, 1 billion people, giving them just 30 seconds makes a huge difference. And your money, this is where they're actually asking you to make that little transaction, usually for a quality of life upgrade. In video games, it comes in the form of, you could play this game for another week, or for $4.99. I could give you a week's worth of progress right now. What do you say? Right? And the prefrontal cortex of every 12-year-old is like, every time, yes, take my money. So that's really important to know because you didn't ask for that feature. That was offered to you. And that is Drool Tech. Again, it's not necessarily bad. It is currently untamed, unmanaged, and generally unknown. So we do just need to be aware that is Drool Tech. It is different by design. Okay? It's intentional. It's not an accident. It's not we're just misunderstanding it. And so you know how that happens. I almost didn't include this. My wife is always like, don't include it. That's too nerdy. You do need to know this. I'll keep it quick. Operant conditioning, B.F. Skinner, 1938. The concept was, well, he taught a pigeon how to play ping pong. Then he wanted to teach a rat how to press a lever on command. Little light goes off, rat presses the lever, gets a treat. Woo! Until the rat doesn't like the treat anymore. And Skinner's like, you know what? You don't like the treat? How you like the electrified floor, rat? Rat freaks out, bounces around, hits the lever. Floor goes dead. Rat figures it out very quickly. When the light goes off, I press the stinking lever whether or not I want a treat. That is delightful. Okay, that is called operant conditioning, and it does work on people, thanks to neuroplasticity and just general behavioral training. It shows up in books like this by Nir Eyal. The idea being there is an external or an internal trigger, meaning internal would be like, I'm sad, I'm bored, I'm lonely. Something like that. Externals, notification, little red signal, some kind of ping, ding, focus, or even like a visual trigger that you're given that drives you back to something. Then they want you to do something with that. Visit our site, use our product, play our game, post, comment, whatever. You're going to get some kind of reward. You don't know what it might be. And by the way, a reward can be mean comments. That is a reward for your brain because it means you matter and you exist and your brain thrives on that, right? This is the reason a lot of internet content is just toxic because they don't care what kind of feedback they get. They just want the views. That then gives us investment. I've already done it once, so the next time you get the trigger, you're more likely to do it again, which is interesting. And again, that's just behavioral training, but it is what happens with all of our Drool Tech. Drool Tech does not have this built in. A great book on this, if you're interested in kind of like a big picture view, would be Norman Doidge's The Brain That Changes Itself. There is a section on here on pornography. It is very good. I wouldn't read it on your own, especially if you're someone who's ever struggled with pornography. He's coming at it from a what porn does to your brain and how we can fix it standpoint, not a Christian worldview. But the rest of the book is fascinating. And I think my favorite part of this book is where a lady takes a medication in a hospital as part of a treatment. It sears her inner ear. She has vertigo, crippling vertigo, loses her job, loses her independent living, can't stand up when she lays down, feels like she's falling through the floor. And a doctor using a device on her tongue that stipples, she turns her head to the left, it's the left, turns her head to the right, it's right, manages to retrain her brain through neural pathways in her tongue to allow her to stand, move, and drive again. Her inner ear is still broken. She doesn't have the thing that allows you and I to stand. It's scorched, completely cooked, they can't fix it, they can't rebuild it, and we don't have like cadaver abilities to attach new ones. But use the tongue to retrain it. The point of that being what we practice becomes a form of permanent for us. And we need to ask, are the things we're doing repeatedly, like what Nir Eyal pointed out in his book, Hooked, are those things worth being good at? Because it comes down to a neural level, and your brain does adapt to your behavior. It adapts to your choices. And the real-world choices we're making, the reason we put the gospel at the center of our tech use, is we need to be doing the right things for the right reasons because it matters. Like on a physical, the way your brain works level, it matters. But if we were to put it in a summation, it would come down to the Hebbian theory of learning. Dr. Hebb said that neurons, well, this is the paraphrasing, but what he said was neurons that fire together wire together. The stuff you do repeatedly, you get good at doing, which shouldn't be brain science, but it actually is. It shouldn't be that, we should all know that. Practice makes permanent, that kind of a thing. But there's science behind it. The reason all of that matters, the reason I took those 3 slides to explain that is your Drool Tech is really, really good at getting you to practice the things they want you to practice. It's not an accident. It's not like they just came up with this somewhere out of the blue. This is behavioral science, and it works all the time. To the point where if you look at the 4 different trillion-dollar companies, all of them use these. If it has notifications, if it has a like button, if it has a feed, generally meaning it's compiling information for you based off a math problem, an algorithm that it thinks you would want or hate. If there's an infinite scroll, there is no bottom, and you can just keep going for days, and it just keeps giving you new information. If there are followers or statistics, if it swipes to refresh, that beautiful, you pull down and it gives you that little swirly for a second and then it pops up new information. You're like, whoa, what did I get? Right? That's not an accident. They could have made that do anything. They could have just given you the information. The fact that you pull is intentional. They designed it off the slot machine. There's whole books written on it. It's fascinating. Points and rewards. If there is anything designed to make you concerned that you are missing out, the fear of missing out, that is drool tech. It is not bad by definition. But those are intentional design features to engage your time, your focus, and your money. To take something you did not mean to give it, and it is not tool tech. The reason I'm spending all of this time driving home tool and drool tech is this is where most research gets hung up. When you read research and they're like, this kind of technology is either the best or the worst, it often is missing how it's designed. It's missing the intention behind it. And we need to be intentional as we think and process it. Because the point here, when you go, all right, fine, I get it. Tool tech helps us create. Drool tech helps us consume. Why does any of that matter? Because we can be convinced we need things that we never even wanted. We can be convinced we need things. By need, I mean you will give up the stuff you need. My friend Cameron runs a drug and alcohol recovery clinic called Absolute Ministries out of Bonnie Lake. And now they're in Idaho and they're in Montana, but Bonnie Lake was the initial one. And he's like, the definition of addiction is when you start giving up stuff you need to get stuff you want. And you talk to any kid who plays video games on social media, has any kind of tech life, and you go, all right, have you ever been on your phone when you were around people? When you were at a meal? When you were supposed to be doing your homework or you were supposed to be sleeping? Just ask them that. Every kid will be like, yeah, sure. Like every single day at school. Like friends are talking, but I'm like scrolling my phone. I'm like, all right, well, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, your friends are your social relationships, your sleep is mandatory for your survival, your schoolwork is your future and your potential. Like your food is like, you need that stuff, but you forgot to eat because you were on your device. And you're giving that up for something you never even asked for. Right? And that's what we're concerned about, is when we start messing up our priorities to pursue things that we never even asked for, but we're pursuing them as though we need them, but we didn't even want them. Here's some examples. Average iPhone user checks their phone 80 times a day. Last time Apple posted this was, I think, 2017, because it freaked everyone out. And we were like, wait a minute, first of all, you watch how many times I log into my phone? Like, yeah, we do that. Sorry, not sorry. So that's not how many times you check your clock. That's how many times you use your face or type in your code to get into your phone. 80 times a day. 8.5 hours is your average tech use for a teenager. Again, not school related. And that's, anyway. So that's not the time you spend on school or Zoom meetings. At 5+ hours, your likelihood of depression increases 66%. That's from a 2017 Twenge et al. Study. Primarily focused on social media is what that study was. But we are seeing it across the board where extended time on technology that's designed for engagement, that's designed to take your time, focus, and money, has a negative impact on you. And it has the ability to reduce attention and test scores. I have about 7 studies that I had up here and then I removed because it's just visual chaos. So if you wanted those, you can come up to me. I'll be happy to get them to you. But the idea here, I'm going to ask you to quickly, remember last time we did a little pair share. Middle school teacher coming out. I gave you a quiz already, and now I'm going to have you talk to your neighbor. I'm going to ask you real quick, talk with your neighbor, what are the 2 types of tech? Can we state them, and can we say what they are? And why does design matter? Why do we care that there are 2 types of tech? You've got a minute and a half. Go.
Do I need less?
Gold stuff. You got 30 seconds. Clam family.
How are you?
Yeah, thank you. How are you?
Oh
my God, that is so big. I know. No, it's awesome. It's growing like a little weed. Yeah, he's still small compared to all his little buddies, but he's tenacious. No, he kept swimming. Yeah, the rest of the summer swimming through it. Doing it. You know, I keep wondering how he can move those limbs with the soul. Yeah, isn't it amazing? Hadley's next. She's going to get it. All right. Thank you. Excellent work. Wonderful job talking. 5 stars. Would recommend. So, second part that we need to talk about is how can we assess tech health? Basically, how do we know if our tech use is healthy or our child's tech use is healthy? We understand it's tool and drool tech, but how do we know if that's even a problem? One of the major issues I see when I talk to parents and when I speak with young people about the talks their parents have with them is parents very quickly, because of fear we have about all the scary stuff out there in the world, start to treat their children like criminals and just assuming that they're doing the wrong things and we have to stop them preemptively. A lot of preemptive strikes in parenting these days. Like, no, you'll never see the internet, and that way you will never make a mistake. Which is certainly one way to do it, the old, locked in a tower theory, that's excellent. But there really is this idea of like, there are some kids out there doing it right, and they're doing wonderful, and so I'm going to empower you right now to know if that's your kid, or if all your deepest, darkest fears are in fact true. I will confirm those for you here in about 5 minutes. The idea here is we're going to do something called a reset, and I put them all at the front so you can write them all down and hear the rest of it. Joke's on me. Sorry about that, guys. So, reset means relationships and responsibilities, your enjoyment, your sleep, your emotions, and your time. And we're simply going to ask, does technology improve or impede? Does it help or hamper? These 5 categories. And when we do, so we say, does it improve or impede? We're just going to say, does it improve, impede, impede. It'll give us a very quick picture. This is not a diagnostic tool with which you are now going to go and unilaterally make decisions, especially with a kid over the age of 5. The kid's under 5, cool. About 5 years old, they're going to start having friends. They're going to start having questions. And your goal here, that Proverbs 22:6 encouragement to raise your child up in the way they should go, does not say, and raise your child up with all the right rules so that when they are old, they will not stray from them. That's not what it says. It says, raise your child up in the way they should go. It says, disciple your child. Because the rules were already in place. People of God already had the rules of God. How'd that go? We still needed Jesus, right? The law was a grace. It showed us our need for God, and it drove people in faith to repentance. People were saved in the Old Testament. We see lots of it. The entire story of Jonah. I was just listening to an amazing Tim Keller sermon. Entire story of Jonah being Jonah going, no, I know that you forgive people when they repent. Even people like the citizens of Nineveh, who set a new standard in debauchery and violence. You're going to forgive them. I refuse. 1 ticket for not Nineveh. I'm not going to go. And when he does preach, what's his entire sermon? You're all going to die in 40 days. No repentance. No, unless you turn. Right? It's just the fry, not the flip of the sermon. And they all do. And he's like, I knew it. When we share this, we're not simply trying to go get our kids and prove to them that they're wrong or broken. We are trying to come in humility with hope, with this idea that there's a chance. So let's talk first. Relationships and responsibilities. You're trying to ask your child, does technology improve or impede your social media, your video games, the shows you watch, the music you listen to, the news you're reading? Is it improving or impeding your relationships and responsibilities? The way you interact with your friends, the way you interact with your siblings, the way you do your schoolwork, the stuff you've committed to, the sports you're playing. This is a wonderful way for us to just simply begin the conversation of, when you go and play that game, you come back more the kid who's engaged with our family. That's amazing. High fives all around. That game's staying. Or, you know what? You're a pretty awesome kid until you go on that app, play that game, hang out with those friends, do whatever that thing is, and we notice a marked degradation in your relationships and responsibilities. Your isolation increases, right? You just withdraw. It's a simple talking point. And it's not you winning this fight. It's you lovingly going to that child humbly and saying, hey, I noticed as a loving parent that this changes. Could you walk me through it? Second is enjoyment. I don't mean, do they really like this show? Do they really like this game? Do they really like this artist? I mean, does it become the preeminent love of their life and everything else wilts? Because the attention, we've all seen this in some area of someone we know with technology, that when this technology enters their life, everything else stops existing. And my testimony, this was video games, as many of you who were here last time got to hear. Video games were my thing. And they very quickly went from something that's awesome and I enjoyed to the only thing that was awesome, and I couldn't enjoy them enough. I never had enough time with a video game. At no point did I go, I think that's just about it. I don't think I need any more games. I finished playing a game and I was like, all right, it's Sunday at 2 a.m. When can I play again? Yeah, it's going to be 5 days. Great, put it on the calendar. If it becomes the only thing we enjoy and at the expense of those other things we used to love, that God wired us to love, then it's a concern. When I watch my 3 children, all of them are wired differently with different passions and interests. So I'm not looking for, well, are they changing what they're interested in? Right? They used to love Legos and now they only love, I don't know, sports. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking they used to love Legos and now they only ever want this one piece of technology. And it's like the root of all of our conflicts. Okay, I'm talking about that one. And that then becomes a conversation. Because you want to know why that pivot has happened. I'm not going to say, because it's drool tech. I'm saying,
That was good.
we notice that something is wrong. Now we get to go have the conversation to Proverbs 22:6 and raise them up in the way they should go. That's discipling, is helping them see the process. You're training them in the way they should go because the law isn't enough. Jonah had to go and actually preach repentance, and God wanted him to, and we need to our children. Sleep. This is something we do terrible at as parents. We'll just start with this. If you have drool tech in your bedroom, you're not doing this right. I'll let it sink in. If you have a $1,000 alarm clock, you're not doing this right. Nobody needs a $1,000 alarm clock. In fact, the alarm clock you need is this one. It's from Amazon. It's $29.90. It's the one I use. You change the batteries once a year. You flip it over to turn on the alarm. You flip it over to turn it off. It's not plugged into a wall. It won't die when the power goes out. You'll be fine. Okay? But for real, the number of people I meet who are like, but I need an alarm clock, and social media and YouTube and all of these other distractions. You don't need that because that's drool tech. It's there to take your time, your focus, and your money, and your sleep is critically important. I'll actually let Matthew Walker, professor of neuroscience and psychology at UC Berkeley, he's the director of the Sleep and Neuroimaging Lab. This is his quote. I won't read it for you because you're all big people. I will repeat, however, sleep, just that thing, which by the way, he's going to be saying you need more than 8 hours. You'd be best off with 9 hours, and your developing child needs 9+. I would challenge anyone in this room to actually say they're getting 9 hours right now. But this is your body. As endurance athletes, see this? Endurance athletes call it sleep nutrition. Got any triathletes in the room? They've probably heard the phrase. Sleep nutrition. You can do all the workout you need. You can put all that stress on your body. You can have the perfect shoes, the perfect physique, the perfect... You don't give your body sleep, it can't absorb the stress you're giving it, which means it's going to start consuming itself to try to keep up with the stress you're giving it, which means all that training you just did actually set you back. You lost muscle and endurance. And the same is true with when we learn, with how we deal with our relationships, with our recall. There's a fascinating study. Nurture Shock is a book that talks about this in a fascinating way. They did a study, 2 groups. The only control, like reverse scientific method, the only control was the amount of sleep. Different ages, different different ethnic backgrounds, different economic backgrounds, different GPA averages, same university. And they just said, great, this group you have to sleep under 5 hours. This group you have to sleep over 8. Same list of words, same amount of time to study, same test. And the 8+ hour group doubled the score at the end of 2 weeks. One control, doubled the score on average. Please let your child sleep. Please fight for their sleep. This is an area worth putting your foot down, even if you don't have all the words. You're welcome to read the books. They'll give you the words. You can blame it on other people. Blame it on me. But sleep is really, really important, and getting drool tech out of the bedroom is one of the major ways to do that. So if drool tech is in the room, that's key. Emotions is our next part of reset. Is it improving or is it impeding our sleep? By the way, some of you are like, yeah, but we use a sleep app. There's sound machines for that. $20. The only excuse I've ever heard for using drool tech in the bedroom is a family who had a diabetic daughter that was really, really extreme, and they used the phone as a form of monitoring and alert system because that technology has not progressed to like the masses yet. And there's some really cool app options. through the different patches and stuff for blood monitoring, where they could know if her blood was spiking or dropping in the middle of the night. Super cool. You're not going to sleep well anyway as a parent in that situation because you're always concerned, so that might be a little bit of peace for you. Cool. But the parent gets it, not the kid. Right? The kid, where's the device? Emotions. When we're talking emotions, we're talking about the high highs and the low lows caused by the technology. So when I say, does tech improve or impede, does your child, there are kids, the one example that comes to mind immediately is young people on the autism spectrum. There are some young people where they have a technological device that really helps them. When they get emotionally overstimulated, when they get visually overstimulated, it does help center them and brings them back to a spot where then they can go back in and they can re-engage in education or in the relationship or in the process of conflict development. I get that. That's really cool. However, for many of us, the emotion spikes come because of the technology, because they thought this was going to be a game day and now it's not, and they're just absolutely flattened, right? They can't function because that thing was removed from them. And I'm not talking disappointed, like, oh, we were going to go sledding today, but now we don't get to because we have to go to the swim meet. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the knockdown, drag out, can't function beyond the realm of reason. They don't know what's going on and you don't know what's going on, those situations. If you haven't been in one yet, you would know. If you have, you're like, oh, I've seen this. I know exactly what's happened. I actually witnessed one at the airport the other day, coming back from Pennsylvania, and there was a young man, and he'd sassed his mom, and she took away his iPad. And for 45 minutes while our plane was getting a sensor fixed, this kid lost his brain. Like, he just lost his gourd. And she came over to us at one point. She's like, I'm here because I would rather take the embarrassment of what's happening than go to jail. And I was like, I get that. Right? And there was no judgment of being like, if she just was a better mom. It's just, you're watching this going, yeah, that's what's happening right now. That young man does not have the emotional capacity to handle the games that are being denied him right now. And he is losing his gourd. Like just full belly. I've never witnessed it before. Full belly screaming. And that's what we're talking about. We're not just saying like we had a disagreement or said he wanted to and I said no and he's like, We're talking, does it? Some people have a really low standard and be like, you just sassed me. No technology ever. We're saying emotional health is being impeded, meaning they are not emotionally well because of the technology they're engaging. And that will show up in their relationships and their responsibilities and their sleep and all those things. Finally, their time, and I'm just going to aim for one thing on this, contentment. Can they be okay with the amount you've set, with the amount you've agreed on as a family? You do need a family tech framework. If you don't have one, you have to have a way for talking about technology. If you need help building one, gospeltechworkshop.com. It's a whole workshop. Digital Nathan will tell you all about it. Okay? There's a workbook that goes on. You can walk through it, how to talk it out, and then how to walk it out. But the time idea here is, can they be content? Can they be satisfied with the amount of tech, the amount of social media, video games, music, or is it just constantly seeping more and more into the other parts of life? So that's our reset. The reason that's important here, let me go back to this one so you don't give you new information. The reason that's important is that we can now say, all right, I know tool and drill tech, and now I have my kid, I have my spouse, I have my friend, I have myself. I like the way this actually does apply to us as parents too. Look at my life. Does my life, is it improved or impeded? My relationship with God based on my relationships and responsibilities, my emotions, my sleep, my enjoyment, my time. And if I haven't improves on every one of those, that's great. However, if I have impeded in one of them, or three of them, actually I'm going to do this right now. So in middle school, I do a little thing called fist to 5. Fist is a 0, 5 is a 5. You keep it right in front of you. This is a quick way for you and me to communicate without me asking you to get like a clicker or your phone out and put it in some kind of app. Because I usually find it's really hard for people to put their phones back. So I'm just going to do it this way. Right in front of you. Don't look at your neighbor, but to me. We're going to look just on the impeded side. Fist to 5 for yourself. How many of those 5 categories? Relationships and responsibilities, emotion, sleep, enjoyment, time. How many of those were impeded by technology? It's right in front of you. Fist, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. For you, just for you, real quick. Oh, this is like a real survey. I'm asking. Get those hands up. I want to see. Just right in front of you, because then no one sees it. All right. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Hands down. Yeah, thank you. Not a lot of zeros in the room. I appreciate your honesty. Couple 5s in the room. That's fascinating. The conversation now needs to be, all right, so we know that something is off. It's off kilter. The question is it a pebble or a blister? The visual for this comes from my 3-year-old and my now 7-year-old. They're running around. Hadley, my 3-year-old, came out and goes, "Daddy, my foot hurts." Pull off her shoe, and her little pudgy 3-year-old foot had been running through the gravel, got a little piece of pea gravel stuck to it. She'd put her shoe back on, and there was just a little piece like embedded up in it. No damage done, but just kind of set up in the little chubby foot. You just take the rock, you throw it out, you put the shoe back on, and let her go run off. That's fine. Henry, the 7-year-old, comes up and goes, "Dad, my foot hurts." Pull off his shoe. Well, he'd been running in the sprinkler, put his shoe back on, wet, with no sock, then was running around the cul-de-sac, and he had a silver dollar-sized blister on the bottom of his foot. Now, both of them were experiencing pain, both of them in the same region of their body. Very different solutions. I cannot just peel off the blister. Right? It's a very different solution, even though the symptoms are almost identical. So when we talk technology, I actually saw this happen. In the same year, I had a young man who was a 9th grader and a young man who was a junior in high school. Both of them struggling with video games, both of them failing multiple classes. Both of them, I'm involved in the conversation. Get working out. One kid, the older kid, it was Minecraft. He just could not handle it. It was eating his face off. He couldn't focus in class. When he quit playing the video game because his parents took it away, he started watching it. He just had an earbud in, and he would just AirPod in, earbud. Woo! Airbud is a movie about a golden retriever. So, that come out your nose? Almost. Did I get it? All right. So he had an AirPod in, and he would just watch videos for, it was upwards of 10, 12 hours a day is what he was consuming, which, again, it's not about necessarily the amount of time, but that is a good sign of what was going on in his heart and mind. The other young man was playing, he had 500 games on his phone at the end of the day. It was a big conversation that led us to finding that out. But that was the end of the days. He had 500 games on his phone, and he was gaming multiple hours a day, and he was failing. That kid was failing 4 out of 6 classes. So then the conversation came down, well, how do you fix it? Well, it turns out in the Minecraft side, conversation with parents, conversation with the young man, turns out that this is just a really unhealthy stress outlet for him, and it needs to go away. So he took a 30-day just full cut. I'm not going to have my phone. I'm not going to have access to any of this stuff. I'm going to go play golf again, which is something he was passionate about. And he ended up going back, playing golf, getting a scholarship, and playing very well in college as a golfer, which is great. And on his bus rides to different tournaments, he was the only kid on the bus without a phone. Because in college, he's like, yeah, I still don't need that. It doesn't help me. It doesn't improve my reset. It impedes it. And I'm just going to go without, which, by the way, we're seeing a lot of young college kids do when they realize, wait a minute, I have goals, and this helps me achieve none of them. Maybe I need a dumb phone. So we are seeing that. On the other side, though, the young man with the video games, turns out in a conversation with him that his dad had just moved home. His dad left when he was 18 months old, had not been in communication at all, arrived at home. So this young man was living with grandparents. Had moved home into the garage with his girlfriend, dog, and was slinging dope to the local neighbor kids. So that young man was gaming, not because of video games, but because he had no ability to handle emotionally what was going on in his life. Right? So if you simply ripped video games away from him, like we did with the kid in Minecraft, you weren't going to you're peeling back a blister, and now you've exposed this entire area to way more infection. You took away that one semi-healthy coping mechanism. Failing 4 out of 6 classes isn't so bad compared to what else he could be doing to himself. He needed professional counseling, which he got. He needed a positive friend group, which he received. And he is beginning to figure out what that looks like to be healthful and process a lot of trauma that has occurred. That won't just go away because you remove video games. So when you talk to your kid, the reason Reset is a form of discipleship, it's a parenting win for you, is because you're going to go talk to your kid and be like, hey, I noticed this app, this game, this situation is impacting your relationships, your emotions, your sleep, your enjoyment, your time. That's a talking point, not an accusation. It's a question in humility because you love them. The same way Christ came into your situation and loved you before you had it all together. It's a chance for you to hear, is this just something that needs to go away for a while because it's distracting you and who you can be? Or is this something we need to treat, put on the kid gloves and get you professional care because you're getting bullied or because you've experienced trauma or because you've made some terrible choices you don't know how to tell me about? Because something has happened in your life that we need to care for in a way other than simply removing technology and expecting life to be perfect. Let's keep in mind, parents. There were 2 world wars before the invention of Drool Tech. It's not the problem with the human heart. However, it is a reflection of the human heart, and it is sometimes just as bad as we fear, but that doesn't mean the solution is simply trying to remove it and expect the heart to fix. So, pebble or the blister is key. Here's your question for this reflection. How do I know if my child's tech use is healthy? And what is the, well, all right. I removed 2 for time and just forgot to fix the numbering. Sorry about that. What's the difference between a pebble and a blister? Turn to your neighbor and share. Go. Seconds. All right, bring it in. So, our third section then. How do we build tech trust? This is an area I'm super passionate about. This could have been an hour. And I will say, John, I have been checking the clock and been telling myself a different amount of time left than is actually left. And I recognize that during that break, my brain finally reset. I've been, sorry. So that's on me. I promise I am professional and I can keep a time, but in my head, I want to give you the full. So if you guys can give me a couple extra moments, if you have to leave, I won't even judge as you both. But I want to roll you through this tech trust part because it's key to our conversation with our young people and understanding how to progress this conversation. What do we do with tool and drill? What do we do with reset? It comes here. So we're going to talk about building tech trust. And the first piece we're going to talk about is to build a hedge. That's that first little blank. The concept of building a hedge is it's not a wall, right? It's not some kind of impervious surface that you're going to stop your child from ever making a mistake. That's not the way God works. It's not the way we should. God allows for mistakes and lovingly calls us back to repentance and righteousness, and then provides us the hearts that actually want to do right. Basically, the idea behind building a hedge is we're going to make good decisions easier. Want to make good decisions easy. Bad decisions hard. Not impossible, but sure, let's put up a hedge. Let's be intentional with what we're going to do. And the best way to do that is by providing intentional parenting communication tools. So Bark would be one. Bark is an app that goes on phones and computers. It is best on Android-driven devices. I believe I said this last time. If you have an iPhone for your kid, go resell it. You'll lose no money. Just give it back to them and get an Android device. That would be like a Google Pixel or a Samsung. The reason being, the quality of the accountability is out of this world. The difference, it's hard to explain. I will attempt to say it by saying this. Amazon has made its money by providing your needs before you know you have them, right? That's its goal, is to just put every other business in a vertical column out of business, whether it's a grocery store or a knick-knack shop. Google wants to basically just be the informational hub of the world and take all of your personal data for profit. Apple really, really, really wants to be the privacy company. They want to be the company who builds their identity around keeping people private and unknown. That is rough when it comes to accountability and caringly supporting our children on the internet. It is well designed, it's well done for its intended goal, but it's not going to help your child maybe progress in accountability. So Bark works on it on iPhones, but it works better on other devices. Another example would be something like a Griffin router. I mentioned this last time. Griffin router is just a way to help control your local Wi-Fi. Covenant Eyes, if you're specifically concerned about pornography for yourself or for others, this is a wonderful one. Pornography. Covenant Eyes is the app that I've used since college, back when it was just on computers. But they do an amazing job. Again, works amazing on Android devices and okay on iPhones. They do a nice job with what they can, but there's literally rules around what they're allowed to do. And finally, the Gab phone. If you're looking for a great phone to get your kiddo and you don't want to give them all of the potentials of a smartphone, do that. So if you need more on this, you're like, I just need more around building a hedge, here's a few podcast episodes to go check out. They're around 30 minutes each, and that allows me to say other things in this time because we just don't have the time to really run into how are we going to do these. But those 4 resources, those podcast episodes that'll help you talk through the process of both the how-to and the why will help you in that conversation. So first thing we do when we're talking about tech trust is we build them a system where trust is reasonable. Right? It's a safe thing to trust them because we're sending them in a spot that we're being intentional with. The second is we need to assess the responsibility of the individual. Are they able to handle this? And before we even get to is my child trustworthy? Because again, we don't just want to assume our child is a criminal. We need to base this out of the Bible. One who is faithful with very little is also faithful with much. One who is dishonest with very little is dishonest in much. Luke 16:10. We need to be faithful with those little things. For example, how do they handle the family? Are they showing up for meals? Are they part of the conversations? Are they open and honest? Are they bringing up things they struggle with and success that they have? How do they treat their siblings? How do they treat their friends? Where are they at with their faith? Are they processing it? I'm not saying, do they believe in Jesus? Give them a smartphone. I'm saying, are they processing their faith? Are they seeking the Lord? Are they praying and reading Scripture and asking big questions? Because from about the age of 6, they can do that. My 6-year-old continually, well now 7, continually stumps me with questions. I'm like, I don't know, buddy. Let's ask. Let's pray about that. Let's think about it. Let's read on it. Let's go look for some resources because you're asking me huge questions that I don't know. Those are great. What about the content they're consuming and finding joy in other areas of their life? Is that something you want to have multiplied by the power of a digital resource? How are they doing in their schoolwork? Or what about their friends? How about their personal growth and development, their areas of interest? How about their management of money? Yes, your child should tithe. It doesn't get easier just because they get more money when they're older, as many of us know. Right? I'm not even telling you how much a tithe is. You just need to be giving some of your money back to God because it was His in the first place. And that's a really important heart issue thing that we need to train our kids on. We need to look at our time. Where are you spending it? How are you investing that? There is no such thing as free time as a Christian. There's just time. And it's all borrowed at this point. Right? We were bought with a price, and our life is no longer ours. We live in Christ. So we need to make sure our kids are seeing that and they're focused. I'm not going to say do all 10 of those. I'm going to say pick 3. If there's 3 of those that are concerning, those become your parenting win talking points. If there's 3 of those that your kids are crushing, those also can be talking points. By the way, parents, you can go to your kids and tell them the things they're doing well. I now allow you to do that. You don't just have to be on high alert for the next mistake they make. You've been deputized to be a ambassador of good news for your child. But these are areas, when we talk about are they doing the little things right, this would be an example of what we're talking about. But even if they're doing it all right, we need to ask, is that tech worth having? We need the right tech at the right time. First question, is it safe? Like, is this technology just a good choice for a human being to have? Is this music a good type of music, good artist, good song for anyone to listen to, yet alone someone who's responsible? Game to play, movie to watch, show to engage in. Our standard for this is simply Matthew 7, 9 through 10. That idea that Jesus acknowledges, hey, you guys know how to give good gifts. You want to give your kids good stuff. Who, if your kid asks for bread, would give them a stone? Your kid asks for a smartphone. You want to make sure you give them a smartphone. The other example he uses is a fish and a scorpion. Or no, it's an egg and a scorpion, excuse me. Fish and a snake. But the idea stands, right? You don't want to be like, oh, I love you, kid. I want to give you something good. Have a scorpion because you thought it was an egg. So our concept needs to be, is this technology safe, or am I handing my kid a scorpion? It's possible. We can answer that. Does it meet family expectations? This is how you answer this. Your family expectations, hopefully, are biblical expectations. So Philippians 4:8 would apply. It'd be like, all right, well, is this game, show, music, news feed? Is it true? That's full stop. Is it honorable, just, pure, lovely, commendable, excellent, praiseworthy? If it is, cool, it's safe. We can look at this device and say, yes, this device is safe. By the way, I should go back. I'm sorry. Let me go through this. I didn't say it out loud. I said it in my head. Is it safe? First, you would want to ask, is it Drool Tech? Because if it's Drool Tech, it's already going to be fighting your kid for their attention. You're going to set up boundaries for them and go, yeah, but I just need a little more time. I just need to go back a little more often. I just need to spend a little bit more money on it. It's designed to do that. It will do that. It's very good at that. All of the types of Drool Tech will do that. Just know, if it's Drool Tech, does it have apps? If it has apps, it is going to be harder to hold accountable. It will have access to all of the internet. Does it have a web browser on it? We're talking from your Kindle e-reader to your smart TV to your Xbox to your smartphone to your laptop to your school-issued iPad or laptop. Does it involve Drool Tech, internet, apps, and finally, can it be held accountable? That's your safety questions, okay? Again, I said them in my head. I didn't actually give you those steps. So that's the first piece with safety. Second piece is, does it meet your family expectations? Really simple. There's other Bible verses you could use as well. But as a family, we need an expectation. If you don't have it, you need a family tech framework. If you don't know how to build one, gospeltechworkshop.com. We put it all on there so that you can see it every time you need it. Third is, does it support my child's potential? This ties back in with that reset. Is it improving? But really what I'm looking for is fruit of the Spirit. Does this? When my child uses this, if the reset didn't really click, I hope this does. When my child uses this thing, when they engage this thing, do they come back with more? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Do they? Or is it take a definite hit? By the way, did you know this isn't the only list? I grew up thinking like fruit of the Spirit, great, and just was like, well, I got most of those. Did you know there's another list right before it? This is fruit of the flesh. This is your other option. If my child comes back from technology with more strife, more jealousy, with more anger, with more dissension, with more envy, Instagram lives on this. I don't know why. Everyone on Instagram is doing so much better at me than at life. Their parenting, their kids' clothes, their professional speaking. A lot of professional speakers on Instagram, by the way. They're all very famous and good, apparently. And I just wonder why God called me to such mediocrity. But really, when we talk to our kids, right, we can call this out. We're not just going to say, hey, I see this kind of fruit in you, so you're done. That's not the point. The point is call it out and find out what is causing that fruit. It's coming from something. It's not that they're trying. It's this is fruit being born out of something going on in their heart, and it's a conversation point for us. So then we have the 3 ways to know if it's a good decision. We know if our child is responsible. We know if the tech is a good call. What if we realize it's not? You gave the smartphone, and now you hear this, and you're like, oh no. Right? You gave the tech in the bedroom. You gave whatever it is, the video game, the thing that's distracting from them, and you realize we need to take a step back. I get asked this a lot. It wasn't part of the presentation, and I wanted to add it because we need to remember where we got here from. We did the reset. We checked for their responsibility. We recognize it's the wrong tech based on our expectations and on their potential. We have reasons. You're no longer operating just out of fear. In fact, this is how you operate out of hope. Because you look at your kid and you say, no, I know that you're called to something more than what this thing is allowing you to have. This is the impediment. This is what I was convicted of with my video games. For some people, it's not video games. But for me, I was like, no, I can't look at video games and use them in good conscience, knowing what I know about myself and what the Lord's laid on my heart. Which brings us to the process. You're going to remove them out of love. Matthew 5, Matthew 18, where Jesus says, if your right hand causes you to sin, you cut it off. If your right eye causes you to sin, you gouge it out. But you don't just leave it gouged out. The point isn't the suffering of that. The point is that victory and freedom is worth so much more than that momentary solace you found in something that's killing you. Any more than you would want someone who's dying of a curable disease to not get the proper diagnosis and go under the knife of surgery. You want that surgery so they can live. We want our children to live. And if it's causing them to sin, if it's Galatians 5:19 through 21, it is killing them. Even if video games aren't the thing that does it, their heart attitude is what we're concerned about here. We're going to replace it with stuff. Every single time I've seen someone go off the deep end with some technology, it's inspired by a heart that God has given them that's been twisted. Something God has wired them for adventure or belonging or relationship or a heart for the hurting or whatever that thing is that they're diving deep into. And finally, you're going to do it in relationship. Last time I gave you 3 things to do with your kiddo. I said, please go ask your kid about the technology they're using. You did give it to them after all, so you should be learning about it in real time with them. Ask them to teach you how to use it. Yes, have them show you what's TikTok. How does it work? Ask them to show you that video game and teach you how to play it. Ask them to show you that show they love and watch one with them. And the third one is to do it together, to actually enter their world and play with them. Again, if you feel that's morally wrong to do, then that brings us back to this process with what needs to happen with your kid. But if it's not, and your kid's responsible and it's going well, you need to be in relationship, because what you're doing is building that rapport and being in the space they need to be in. So, to finish, I'm not actually going to give you time for this because we're going to dive straight into a Q&A, but I want you to see it. We want to make sure that we know how to build a hedge, assess responsibility, and we can choose the right tech based on our kids and our situation and our season. And we need to remember that there are 2 kinds of tech. That we can assess tech health and we can build tech trust using the steps right there for us. That we can both know if our child is trustworthy, and if they're not, we can actually take intentional steps to help them build that, which is discipling our children, which is raising them up in the way they should go, so that we can raise up kids who love God and use tech. Thank you, guys.
We say thank you to Nathan.
Sorry about the timing, everyone.
No, you're good.
Got a little excited.
So I think we have a few minutes for Q&A, and if you need to pop out, you're fine. All of our kids' classes know that we're going to run just a little bit long, so we're going to give you guys a few questions or opportunities to ask some questions. We had thought of some questions as well, but you can ask any question you want around technology. So last time the conversation was on smartphones, gaming, and pornography. Obviously today on how do we understand different types of tech and then build trust in that. Just a couple of guidelines again. Try not to call anybody out. So like Trevor's not going to be like, well, Weston has been doing this. I called you out, Weston. So like if you could make your question a little more general, that would be helpful. That way it could apply to others as well. And we'll tee up some questions and go from there. Anything else to add before we open questions?
That's it. No,
Okay.
That's good.
Anybody have any questions they want to ask? Okay, Marilyn, you want
I
to?
don't do this. I don't do podcasts. Is that a drill tech?
Is your podcast
Little
drill thing?
kids who do podcasts and stuff, and they're always telling me things, and I'm like, I don't even do apps.
Yeah, I mean, it would depend on, my hope would be if you listen to the Gospel Tech podcast, that you are using it to inform
That's
and
what-
not just come away with fun facts. But yeah, if you're using it for entertainment, it's Drool Tech, and its goal is to get you to listen and
Right.
to come back more often, and right, it's got all those built into it. That's why there's, when you listen to one, it'll suggest others. It's designed as Drool Tech. Otherwise, you would just download it directly to your device from their website or something. But it can be tool tech. There's a lot of, I'm heavily informed and encouraged. So like, I use Tim Keller, for example. I listen to his podcast. They have sermons they post each week by Tim Keller, and it's a parasocial relationship. I don't know Tim Keller. He doesn't know me, but he is a massive influence on my spiritual development in life. So it's all the things of the digital Drool Tech world, but it's a positive version of it anyway. Yes, so it can be Drool Tech.
Okay.
That doesn't make it bad. It just means we want to be cautionary about how we're using it and how it's impacting us.
Yeah, it's definitely the new front. Well, it's been around for a while, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like Netflix in that they're trying all different types of things. So there are podcasts that will release a whole season at a time. So they're going to release 10 or 15 hours of content at one time, right? Hoping you'll consume it all, right? Or they're going to do a weekly thing, like they've in weekly episodes. So it's definitely, they're trying to get your attention in a lot of different ways. I love podcasts though, and there's a lot of great ones out there for, especially for understanding and learning. And
Yeah,
growing.
I will say right now there's very little accountability on podcasts, so the content can go sideways. It's that like late night radio stuff, and so they're still exploring the space. It's still a little wild westy. So maybe don't allow your children with an unfettered Amazon Dot or something like that.
Yeah, and I on a tip on that, all of the streaming apps are now integrating podcasts into that homepage and trying to present that to you. So if you think, oh, my kid's just listening to music, they're going to be presented with whatever the new top podcast is that's out there, and they're trying to platform that. So yeah, just a couple of things on that.
You said there was a device or an app for autism to refocus?
Yes, Mightier is the one that I have seen that's undergoing, oh goodness, I want to say it's Boston University, but it's doing medical trials with it, and it's tied in with a wristband that watches heart rate and I want to say blood pressure. And so they play like a little game, and as they get more frustrated, the screen like narrows, and then it like gives them like basically breathing and anxiety practice to help self-monitor and self-regulate. So it's not just play Call of Duty and you'll get better behavior. It's a game designed to bring out frustration and then to teach them how to self-moderate.
So it's a game?
It's a game they designed. Well, I mean, it's a program that is designed as a game. But not actually Drool Tech, which is weird. It's Tool Tech as a game, which is a bizarre concept. But
one of the questions that we've had asked is, with technology continuing to grow and develop, should we as parents, grandparents, be creating our kids and be intentional to raise them as tech natives with technology immersive for them at a very young age? What are your thoughts on that idea? And
yeah, it's an interesting argument, huh? I'll tackle it. I think we answered something similar to this last time. I will say it this way this time. I would say I've never met a 3-year-old who doesn't know how to use an iPhone. I believe the future of technology is highly user-centric, and if you want your child to be at the forefront of the digital age, teach them coding and get them a 3D printer and teach them AutoCAD or Rhino. The idea that your child needs to just be on social media and somehow by osmosis is going to absorb a passion for healthy lifestyles and academic rigor, we're not seeing that. So I guess I would have to hear more about what the people want from their child, but you are not doing your child a disservice by allowing them space from the internet. You're giving them a childhood. The internet is not a great spot for childhood. There's a lot of perks to it, but it isn't that. And so as we look to develop healthy young people, giving them opportunities to do that at the pace of real life and real person relationships as often as possible is going to be the best for your child, and supplementing that with digital opportunities is very cool as long as we go in heads up on what's happening. We know it's safe. We know it's a good fit for our kid based on our family expectations. We know it's a good fit for our child's purpose. And then we watch that reset to make sure that it remains healthy as it progresses, because kids change. So
can I put you on the spot just a little bit more? Then a lot of people ask, what age should I be introducing my kids into various types of technology? Do you have a recommended, at this age, maybe you could start gaming with them a little bit, or at this age, maybe start...
Yeah, gaming's a fraught conversation, so let me start somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'll return to that, though. So with no, there is no age. It is the age at which you want your child exposed to all the stuff that is out there. So for dumb phones, I would say as soon as your kid is doing things without you, they need to be able to text you, they need to be able to call home, they need GPS to know where they're at. Great, get them a Gab wireless phone or something like that. The Wise Phone by Techless is another great option. There are some awesome opportunities out there that will allow them communication, so that's cool. When you're watching shows, I would say shows that fit your Philippians 4:8 for your family, that fit your family expectations. So there are animated shows that I don't let my children watch. Caillou, I'm calling you out. By the way, if your child watches Caillou, a little kid needs to get karate kicked. So, and if that offends you, excellent. Please reflect on your choices. But really, there are shows that I don't let my kids watch that are designed for that age, and that's simply because when they watch them, different things happen. I go, all right, that impacts our reset, so we change it. So as long as it fits the content expectations for your family and it doesn't impede, it improves your kid. An example that I think I've used before, Wildcrafts is an example. For my kids, when they watch it, they come away more excited. They don't come away disjointed. They want to get a book from the library on that thing. They want to ask huge questions. I learned that only female mosquitoes drink blood. Who knew? The males apparently drink nectar. Yeah, some other people, maybe who've watched Wildcraft. So
Are you like assessing? Oh, that's only a male. I don't need to swap that.
Yeah, we're good. No, it's a female. That idea, though, is that it can be an awesome addition to your family. So when it comes to things like smartphone, I would say wait as long as possible. There are the number of benefits, even for like a 17 or an 18-year-old, to get a smartphone and what they're going to be engaging. The only benefit is if you're discipling them while they're still in your home. If you want to take that step, do it. But do it after they've proven their trustworthiness in a wide swath of life. Do it once they've tested the dumb phone and they've used the public device and they've used your phone to interact with some of these apps and you've had those public pieces. And then when they do get it, you're going to trust them with it and you're going to verify. It's going to have Gab Wireless on it. It's going to have all the things that don't go away when you become 18 and somehow now I'm bulletproof. Like, I still have Covenant Eyes on my phone. I still have it on my work and home laptops. Like, I just want to make bad choices hard to make. And that's something we want our kids to want for themselves. Because as soon as they're like, nah, I'm just going to make bad choices and it's going to be awesome, there's no amount of accountability that's going to fix that. That's a hard issue. So when we talk technology, and then we'll get to that, on the video game side, man, start slow and low. Man, go back to OG Nintendo. Go back to games that were designed to be games. Again, video games are games at their core. They're intended with a purpose. There's something you're trying to do. You're trying to outscore the other person. You're trying to complete something. You're trying to carry something somewhere, right? There's some challenging goal. And then there's the rules. You can only do it this way, right? So I have to, just like baseball, you can only throw the ball over the plate between the knees and the shoulders, right? It has to be able to, right? Like all those little pieces are rules you have to follow. And then there's a victory condition to know if you did it right. There's a way to know when you finally won. After 9 innings, if you have more points, you win. Whatever that thing is, that's true, except a lot of modern games take that and. They have scores, and they have notifications, and they have levels, and they have quests, and they have all these things that get you to play a game that you now feel like you need to because you're so invested in it, even though you don't like it anymore. Ask your gamer if they've ever played a game they didn't enjoy, and ask them why they kept playing. And the answer is just, I was already so far in. Like, all of us have done it at some point. So, with video games, again, personal for me. So there's no right age on those, long as possible for smartphones, and we're seeing a lot of young people go to college and not even get smartphones. Realize that that's just a racket, and it's not helping them become who they want to be. And there's some amazing smartphones that do amazing things. One more thing, and then we'll get to that hand. Okay. An example app that I will use, Skyview. If you've never used it, it's Tool Tech. It's like Google Earth, but for space. You point it at the sky. It's augmented reality. I used it this week to show my sons where Saturn, Venus, and Mars come up behind our house every night. And now they can spot Saturn, Venus, Mars in the belt of Orion from our house, right? Like, I use it, we look through, and you basically look through your phone, it shows through your camera, and then it superimposes where the planets are. Super cool. I nerd out on that hard, and that's very fun. And by the way, yes, you can look at the ground and find where the moon is on the other side of the planet. That works. But that idea of the rhythms, the math, how would this app know that, is a really cool conversation to have with your kid. So don't just run away from it all, but when you do give it to them, use it in tandem. Thank you for your patience.
Oh, I'm good. I got this is more for my wife than anybody. It kind of,
Not calling anyone out, that's cool.
No. Okay, so my son has had a smartphone, I think, for 7 years.
Yeah.
Right? And, since I met my wife, when she first met us, we were walking around stores like this and stuff,
Doing Pokemon Go, is that what you're
walking
saying?
into traffic with our phones up,
Yeah.
and then she's
Squirrel.
changed her whole life and put, basically God before our phones. And, on Sunday I don't even touch my phone.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing, but how do you backtrack him? He's, I can't put him on a bark phone, but, just
Because-
my wife, yeah, I mean,
Why can't you put him on a bark phone?
Well, I think that he's had phones for 7 years, but, she monitors pretty good, and this class, I've kind of brought it in here for this class because I had it last time.
Yeah.
It was great. We chose the wrong person to come to it, but we brought her. How do you go backwards with something?
Is he unhealthy with his smartphone?
He's dumb.
On your reset, how was your phone use?
I only really use it to talk to friends.
Yeah, which at that point a bark phone would be a stellar option for you,
Watch YouTube when I'm really bored.
right? And that can be really fun. That's awesome. I would say if he's not unhealthy with it, you don't have to withdraw it. I think getting him something like Bark, I would say swapping him out of an iPhone to an Android device is going to allow you to trust and verify as he grows and gets older. I know iPhones are delightful. I love them for their AirDrop capabilities and all that. If there's not a red flag situation you're dealing with, I would say just keep the conversation and the accountability going. If there's a reset area where you're like, hey, the iPhone is clearly the way that your boredom is showing up every time you get stressed every time we have a conference, right? Like you can follow that thread back to, and technology is actually making it worse than better, well then we have a conversation point. But bark phones are never out of the question. They're always on the table.
I would say I personally, in the last 15 years, because I worked at AT&T when the first iPhone came out, we had it right away. There's been multiple times where I've given up a smartphone for a year or 2 years and just gone to a really basic phone, just because I know I have a tendency to always pick it up. And so I think it's just a healthy part of all of our lives to be constantly assessing what the technology is. And I think that was why when you put together that list and sent it to us of the building trust thing and went through how's it impacting all of us, I was like, oh, this is not just great for kids, this is great for all of us as adults to see how is my technology use being impacted and impacting all of these areas in my life. And I think what we saw in a call from Christ is that if something is that barrier, then we're willing to say, I'm not putting that, just like you said, I'm putting God above that. And so willingness to say, yeah, I'm going to say no to that is a really, really good and healthy thing. I think we have time for one last question. Anybody else have any last questions? Aaron, you can ask a question. Then I think Nathan has a few minutes afterwards if you want to come up and ask any last
Well,
minute
if
questions.
somebody else has another one, I can ask him.
Okay.
Just, I mean, I don't want to take the last question.
Did you want to share? No.
Oh, no, I'm just.
All right. Okay.
So when it comes to introducing a kid into technology for the first time,
Yeah.
if you're constricting them from something that's, say, really, really popular in their culture,
Yeah.
like a smartphone or social media, and then by the time you give it to them way late from all of their friends or everyone,
Yeah.
and they just want to like dive headfirst into it hardcore, is there a way that you kind of would recommend going about that?
Yeah, I guess I would love to know more about that. We're not seeing that happen in actual practice. So with those examples of those young people who've delayed, they're actually, what they're seeing is they're watching their friends get into drama on social media. They're going, oh man, like it's true, I didn't know that joke, but like the risk reward of knowing that joke versus like the amount of trauma these kids are going through isn't worth it. We're seeing them with video games going, hey, like these games are fun, but I'm watching my friends just absolutely dump themselves into these games and they're coming away with nothing to show for it. They're not going to be professional gamers. That's not their goal. They're not going to be live streamers. They burned 6 hours that they don't have anymore. And I went and did this other thing. And what we're seeing is the more real life experience we're giving our kids, the more opportunities. Like I was raised without a television and I don't go bender on television. If anything, I go, wow, that was entertaining for you guys. Like I have a hard time wrapping my brain around some shows because they're built around similar tropes that I don't know. I have no nostalgia for them. And so when people are like, this is the best, I watch like 30 seconds. How I Met Your Mother, by the way. I don't get it. I don't like that entire show. People are like, it's amazing. I'm like, okay. So that part of me is like broken because I didn't have the nostalgia to fall back on. Whereas in video games, it's reverse. I'm nostalgic for things that are stupid because it's so embedded in me. So I would say we don't see kids going on benders like some kind of alcohol-fueled party scene from a 90s movie because it's not what's happening. What we end up seeing is these kids get them late. They have the emotional maturity. They have the brain development. That's a lot of the part with drool tech is the orbital frontal cortex simply isn't developed. So your kid's ability to inhibit action isn't there. Like it's non-existent physically. And giving them a little bit of space gives them both some retrospect. They can watch friends go through it. They can also then recognize their own personal goals. I'm not telling you that a kid's not going to say, man, I really wish I'd had this because I wanted to belong. This is where all my friends were. I will reiterate what I said last time. Most of these, the argument being this is the cul-de-sac. This is where the kids are. They're on the video games. They're on social media. They're out there in this digital space. Our kids need to be there to be a light and to belong. It's the cul-de-sac of the modern world. And I would say that's true if your cul-de-sac was built by a freeway next to a federal penitentiary in the red light district at midnight. Right? Like that is the environment that you're releasing your child to. So if you want to go there with your kid and you want to show them what it looks like to visit that part of the world, then do it. But know what it is. It isn't the cul-de-sac right outside your front door. There are strangers and bullies and trauma and really, really hard stuff going on in real time that's only one click away. And there are bad actors actively seeking to spread that. So that being said, I've not witnessed kids go on benders when the technology finally gets there because they have no ability with which to manage it. I actually see the opposite. When they get it, they kind of are a little disillusioned about this is what the hype was for. And I think when we see those benders happen, because I'm certain they do, they happen from a lockdown out of fear standpoint, where your kid starts to resent you. And they start to say, you don't even understand me, you don't value me, I haven't done anything wrong, I'm fully responsible, this is technology that's reasonable, and you just don't like it. And therefore, you must not like me. And that is where we start to get harmful and dangerous, is when we start locking this down because we're like, well, you don't need it, right? That's the person on the lawn with the rake. We don't want to do that to our kids. We want to love them, give them good gifts. And if it's not good, we want to clearly communicate that from a gospel standpoint. They may not agree with us, but to be able to clearly communicate this will or will not help you, and give them the ones they ask for. Yeah, if your kid really wants that game and it's not morally reprehensible and it's not distracting them and their reset is healthy and they're right, like all those parts, let them play the game. See how it goes. And if it tanks, cool. Now you have a talking point and a reason for going, no, not that game. Right? Like, and not this season. And that's that parenting that I really care about. So, yeah.
Thank you. Can we say thank you to Nathan one more time?